Building concrete lawn borders. There is no better way to add curb appeal and value to your home than adding concrete lawn borders. Concrete borders can be used to define your lawn, flower beds, and pathways, adding a clean, finished look to your home's landscaping. Concrete borders can be poured at virtually any depth or width, and can be easily formed to meet any contour, and can even be colored or stained. Concrete is also the most durable and long-lasting edging option available. It doesn't rot, warp, or deteriorate. Pouring concrete lawn borders is also a very affordable do-it-yourself project, costing less than $2 per lineal foot for all the concrete and materials you will need. To get started, move away any landscaping materials, like mulch or landscape rock around the perimeter of your lawn or planting beds. Using a shovel, create an outline of the border location. Concrete borders can be installed at ground level to act as a mowing strip, or above ground level to hold back and separate landscaping materials from the lawn. Concrete borders should be at least 3.5 inches thick and should extend a minimum of 2 inches deep into the ground. This is important to anchor the borders solidly in place to prevent shifting and cracking. Once you have determined the thickness of your border, the border height above the ground, and border depth, dig a trench about 1/2 inch to 1 inch deeper than the border thickness, minus the depth of the border. This will allow for variations in the terrain as you build the forms. The width of the trench should be excavated 2 to 3 inches wider than the width of the border. Try to keep the walls of the trench as vertical as possible. This will help provide support for the forms, especially on curves. Use a square shovel to level the bottom of the trench to provide a level and compacted base. Once the concrete border trench is excavated, you are ready to begin constructing your forms. 1/4-inch plywood is the recommended material for border forms because it can be used for both straight and curved border shapes. 1/4-inch plywood is available in 4-foot by 8-foot sheets and can be easily cut with a circular saw. The plywood should be cut in strips equal to the depth of the concrete border. 12-inch long, 1 inch by 2 inch wide wood stakes should be used to securely hold the 1/4-inch plywood forms in place. First, position the form in the trench and then drive a wood stake into the ground on the outside of the form. It is important to keep the stake vertical and snug against the form. The stake should be level with the top edge of the form. After the first stake is in place, use a cordless drill with a Phillips head bit to drive 2 1-inch screws through the plywood into the stake from the inside of the form, one near the top of the form and the other in the middle of the form. Then drive a stake into the ground at the end of the form, so that the form edge aligns with the middle of the stake. Make sure that the form is vertical, and then screw the form into the stake with 2 screws. This will allow the next board to butt up against the previously set board, creating a continuous form. Additional stakes should be used to help maintain the desired contour of the border form. Stakes can be used on the interior or exterior of the form to help hold the boards vertical and in place on curves or straight segments. When using stakes on the interior of the form, it is important to drive the stakes into the ground so that the top of the stake is no more than 1 inch above the bottom of the form. If the stakes are not driven deep enough, the concrete could crack directly above the stake. Once you have completed a few sections of one side of the form, start constructing the other side of the border form. The key to making the concrete border a consistent width is using wood spacers at regular intervals. Spacers can be made out of 1x1s or 1x2s, cut to the desired width. Border widths of 4 to 6 inches are the most common. Simply slide the spacers between the 2 forms to keep your forms parallel. The spacers can be used temporarily for alignment or left permanently in place, as long as the spacers are pushed down to the bottom of the form before pouring the concrete. If the spacers are placed too high, they can cause the concrete to crack. Once the forms are completed, compact the ground under the form and pour about 1/2 inch of QUIKRETE all-purpose gravel between the forms. Then spread level. The gravel will prevent concrete from flowing underneath the form and provide a solid base for the concrete. QUIKRETE Crack Resistant Concrete is the recommended mix for building concrete borders. QUIKRETE Concrete Mix in the yellow bag can also be used. Crack Resistant Concrete is a high-strength 4,000 psi mix reinforced with special synthetic fibers that resist shrinkage cracking and has improved impact resistance. The mix also provides a superior finish. Crack-resistant concrete can be mixed by hand in a wheelbarrow or mixing tub, or machine mixed in a barrel-type mixer. Properly mixed concrete should look like thick oatmeal and should hold its shape when it is squeezed in a gloved hand. Place the concrete mix into the form using a shovel. The surface of the concrete should be relatively flat and slightly above the form. After placing a few batches into the form, use a wood float to consolidate and level the surface. Work the mix back and forth across the surface of the concrete to remove excess concrete and smooth the surface. Then, using an edging tool, consolidate and shape the edges of the border. Several passes should be made in each direction for a smooth finish. Cut in control joints using a margin trowel about every 8 feet. Control joints should be cut a minimum of 1/4 of the depth of the border, so about 1 inch deep for a 4-inch deep border. The purpose of the control joint is to predetermine where the concrete will crack as it shrinks during the curing process and if there is any ground movement. Freshly placed concrete should be water cured for a minimum of 3 to 5 days with a fine water mist. Water curing can be eliminated by applying QUIKRETE acrylic concrete cure and seal immediately after finishing the concrete. Acrylic cure and seal can be applied with a roller, garden sprayer, or a brush. Sealing the border will also prevent staining from landscaping materials, soil, and mowing. Allow the concrete to cure and gain strength for 3 to 5 days before removing the forms. At 5 days, the concrete mix has only achieved about half of its ultimate strength. Start by carefully prying away the stakes and removing the plywood forms. The tip of a pointed shovel also works well, providing leverage to lift out the forms, but be careful not to use too much force that could crack the new concrete. Once the forms are removed, backfill with soil and replace any landscaping materials. The addition of a concrete border around flower beds, lawns, or other landscape areas will give your home that clean, finished look that will add curb appeal for years.